Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it is remaining fairly chilly and fairly unsettled in places over the coming days. We've got pretty cold Arctic air over the top of us, and at the moment we're going to continue to see that dominate through much of this working week, for by the end of the week it could turn slightly less cold, but it's not looking mild at all. Maybe temperatures could just get back towards average, and as we see into the longer range into next week, those temperatures could fall once again, with more Arctic, or at least well below average, upper air temperatures moving back in. It's a really chilly setup we're seeing at the moment. We've seen plenty of heavy showers through today, a very cold feel out there, and yeah, not looking particularly great in the longer term. Although it has been fairly dry at the moment, and over the coming days it will turn a little bit drier as well. The longer range is not only remaining chilly, but it could even turn more unsettled, with perhaps areas of low pressure getting trapped over the top of us. And we'll have a look at that in detail in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see a few areas of pretty heavy showers around today, and that's because we saw a pretty significant cold front move through earlier, and it did bring that big contrast between cooler air that we have had moving in yesterday and some pretty cold Arctic air that is in place now. Now, that cold front that did bring some very heavy squalling rain earlier today is now across much of Europe. It is weakening, but you can see here some pretty decent little arc there, again symbolising that cold air pouring in to North and Western Europe. It's a really good illustration there of where that cold air is moving in. Now, behind it we've seen some more hefty showers, even down into London today. I saw some hail and growlpool out in there, which just shows you how cold the air mass is, and others have reported thunder and lightning and torrential downpours with these heavy showers. Again, it's pretty typical. We've got strong sunshine out there, cold upper air temperatures, and that division where we see a bit of warmth at the surface with the sun can create some quite big convection. And that is what's happened today. Still got convection going on in the north, but as this moves south, as this area of rain across northern England and moves into the Midlands and southern England, will dissipate away as the sun sets this evening. But we could see more heavy showers tomorrow, maybe not though quite as widespread. Now, do look at the temperatures this evening. Look at that, pretty chilly indeed. Now, you can see across Europe where that cold front is sat, with some milder air to the moment to the south and east of it. Nothing especially mild, but much colder behind it. Look at that for Luxembourg, parts of Germany. Temperatures down close towards freezing due to that heavier precipitation and evaporative cooling. But for most behind the weather front, temperatures around the mid to high single digits, maybe just about double digits, where we've seen a bit of sunshine. And the same could be said for the UK over some of the higher ground, not getting much above the low single digits. But for low-lying areas, you can see a bit of yellows mixing in. Again, expected. It is, of course, middle of April, but temperatures really far below average compared to what they should be. You can see all the warmth that we saw late last week is now being pushed back towards the Mediterranean, and northern and western Europe is seeing a bit of a taste of some late wintry weather. Now, if you do go over to the UKV and have a look at what that is showing over the coming days, you can see that rain moving through the rest of this evening, but slowly dissipating away as it moves through, but could still pack a punch as it moves in through the overnight hours. As we head into tomorrow, still some showers around, but not looking quite as heavy or as widespread, but more sunshine around. And you see across Scotland, quite a few of the showers having a wintry flavour. As we move into Wednesday, again, you can see areas of thicker cloud moving in, symbolic of a change in air mass. Again, we are remaining in cold air, but we're kind of oscillating between very cold air and slightly less cold air, and that's why we're seeing this thicker cloud and precipitation moving in. But for Wednesday, another largely dry day, but with some thicker cloud and showers around in places. As we move into Thursday, there's a similar picture, weather front moving into the north, as we do see, again, another subtle change in air mass. You can see why it is a subtle change, as the precipitation isn't particularly heavy and it's more just thicker cloud, but still could be pretty miserable in places. And then as we head into Friday, again, another pretty dry day with some sunshine around. So you can see the rest of this week, although it is remaining pretty chilly, at least initially, it is going to be fairly dry. There is going to be quite a bit of sunshine around, and that is typical of a dry, cold Arctic air mass. And of course, we've got higher pressure toppling in as this cold air gets embedded, and that is aiding the lack of precipitation. Into Saturday, more cloud and rain around, and this is because we have got a bit of a threat of some slightly milder air pushing in, but as we see from some of the long range charts in a minute, it is going to just about nudge in before get pushed away in the near future with another colder blast arriving. Now, if you look at the upper air temperature, you can see pretty chilly air, isn't it, at the moment, but it's actually not as cold as it's going to get. As we head into tomorrow, some even colder air starts to arrive from the north and moves in for all as we head into Wednesday. Now, it could mean it's pretty chilly indeed on Wednesday, and then slowly into Thursday and into Friday. That cold air does get nudged away by some slightly less cold air, but still average to below average. And then we do all go into some slightly less cold air for the weekend, but then, as I said, it's likely to get pushed away completely again by some more polar maritime / Arctic air as we head into next week. Now, if you look at the max temperature, you can see this afternoon, temperature's not getting much above sort of 8 to 12 degrees. Pretty chilly indeed, a good few degrees below average, and it's going to remain like that for most of this week. As we head into Tuesday, frosts in northern areas. For southern areas, though, temperature's not dropping away all too much. And again, looking at 9 to maybe as high as 13 degrees through tomorrow afternoon. As we head into Wednesday, look at that, quite harsh frost over some of the hills of northern England, Wales and Scotland, maybe even to low-lying areas. Temperatures down towards sort of 2 to 5 degrees, so really quite cold indeed if you're up early on Wednesday. And then by the afternoon, temperatures struggling again around that 8 to 12 degree mark. Another frost potentially into Thursday morning where we have clearer skies, and by the afternoon temperatures nudging up slightly 13 or 14 degrees, perhaps in England and Wales, and that's because we've got this slightly less cold air moving in. And the same could be said for Friday, maybe 14 or even 15 degrees there. And then into Saturday, again another frost in the north, and by the afternoon again we're looking at 12 to 14 degrees. So you can see a slight bump in temperatures later this week, but it's not a drastic improvement, it's just trending slightly closer to average again, as we do see some slightly less cold air moving in. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, you'll be able to see this northwesterly wind moving in at the moment, and it's with lower pressure, and that's why we've got lots of heavy showers around today. But it is going to change, as I said, over the coming days, because the pressure does slowly rise as the high pressure topples. So you can see the low moves through and it's into tomorrow and Wednesday where the pressure starts to rise slightly, and that's why we do see some slightly dry conditions. But the high pressure eventually topples in later this week with some slightly milder air before we see another push northwards, and this could allow northeasterlies or even easterlies developing here. Now, one advantage of an easterly this time of year is it would be slightly milder than a direct northerly. However, it is most symbolic of low pressure trapped to our south instead of the east like it is at the moment, which could allow a lot of heavy rain to spiral in because it would tap into moisture brought up from the south. So if we do roll back to a pretty typical chart here, high pressure up towards Greenland or North Atlantic, easterly winds with low pressure sat out towards Spain. If we look at the upper air temperatures, you can see we are pretty chilly. We are average to below average, lots of blues, but very close to our south is some yellows and oranges because this is moisture getting fed northwards. And if we look at the precipitation, look at all of these showers and heavy areas of rain spiraling northwards. So yes, this sort of pattern wouldn't be quite as cold as we're seeing it now, but it would be a lot more unsettled with a lot more precipitation around. So that's the trade-off. Slightly less cold, but a lot more rain. Whereas with the direct northerly, yes, it's quite a bit colder. Frosts are looking, they could potentially occur in many areas, but it is generally drier, at least over the coming days. Now, if you compare to the GM, again, northerly wind at the moment, high pressure topples in, and then it heads northwards, and we see a northeasterly or even easterly, and a similar pattern occurs with high pressure all the way towards Scandinavia. Instead of the low pressure being towards the Bay of Biscay in Spain, it's actually sat over the top of us with quite a lot of cold air actually embedded within it. So this would be really chilly indeed. Look at those 2 meter temperatures struggling around 5 to 7 degrees for many areas come the last week of April. Not only are there cold temperatures, but look at all of this rain. Really horrible indeed. That would not be a good chart at all. If that did come off, we would be yeah, having a pretty horrible few days there with lots of heavy rain and lots of cold conditions. So models have progressed away from maybe a direct northerly, but instead have got low pressure more over the top of us, which may be less cold, but would have a lot of unsettled conditions, or a lot more unsettled conditions, and rain around, which, although the upper air temperatures may be slightly higher, actually at the surface could be even colder. Now, if you finally compare to the ECMWF, again, a northerly wind arrives, eventually high pressure moves northwards, and we do see an easterly wind. Now, it's a little bit in between. We don't have any sort of significant low developing, as that block really hasn't got going to our north, but it's similar. Easterly winds, cold air in place, and lower pressure trying to push in. As I said, it's unlikely to be as cold or as unsettled as the other ones, simply because the isobars aren't as tightly packed together, but it's a very similar overall chart. Now, after you finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see cold over the coming days, trending towards average by the end of the week and hanging around average for a few days through the weekend, and then another drop in around a week's time, back well below average by around 5 to 8 degrees, and then staying there before slowly trending back towards average for the end of April and start of May. You can also notice when that second plunge of cold air comes, the precipitation starts to increase as well. Not massively yet, which does indicate there's still quite a bit of discrepancy exactly the synoptic pattern, but definitely increased since yesterday, so it could be setting up another quite cold spell, but perhaps even more unsettled than we're seeing at the moment. And again, it's another day where that ensemble mean does not get above the 1991-2020 mean, which is pretty incredible, considering it's near enough average to above average for most of the winter, bar from a few colder spells. Now, for most of the second half of April, it is below average, and it's going to remain really quite chilly indeed. If we look at those 2 meter temperatures, maybe getting up towards 15, 16 degrees at a push come the weekend, and then it drops again back down to 8 or 9. If you look at the ECMWF, again, it's not fully come out, but it is a similar picture. Even less of a rise next week, towards the end of this week, though. So really pessimistic with anything close to average there, with it staying good a degree or two below average for the foreseeable future. Less rise in terms of precipitation in the longer term, which does give the indication that the ECMWF operational and ensembles are less inclined to build that low over the top of us and just instead keep a northerly or northeasterly. So colder, but slightly more settled. So again, it's a bit of a trade-off. Would you rather slightly milder, perhaps, with for a time at least, with more rain around, or drier, but perhaps even colder as we progress through the rest of April? Whatever way you look at it, it's not looking particularly great at the moment. We couldn't be further from something warm and dry. Hopefully that is on the horizon for May, but I think at the moment, from the latest model output, it's pretty much a write-off, unfortunately, for the rest of April. I'm really hoping to bring some positive news soon, but the last few videos, at least the last week really, it's all been about this cold weather, and it's looking like it's going to continue for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. But we will have to just see. There still is some uncertainty in the longer term, but not seeing any changes or even any hints of something better at this stage. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.